On 7 News tonight, an e-scooter blamed for a deadly fire that killed a father-to-be at Logan. The COVID surge at some schools reintroducing masks, the latest advice from health authorities. A trainee landscaper rescued after falling 8 metres down a hole at Strathpine. A Chinese passenger plane in a chilling crash that's baffled aviation experts. The clown caught on camera stealing a puppy from the RSPCA. And beating the cost of living blues, tonight the household budget busters saving families thousands on their bills.
Live from Brisbane, 7 News with Sharon Goodella.
Good evening. An exploding e-scooter battery is being blamed for a devastating fire which claimed the life of a young father-to-be at Logan. His pregnant partner is fighting for life. Their baby delivered in emergency surgery.
Consoled on the footpath, a father grieves for his son, proud of his heroic actions.
He threw himself over the top of her to save her, and he took most of the burns.
22-year-old Blake Wells suffered burns to more than 90% of his body. His family made the heart-wrenching decision to turn off his life support today. Blake and 20-year-old partner Tamika Willis were expecting a baby boy next month. She was by his side in the caravan when the blaze took hold.
I saw the caravan up in flames. Yeah, I could feel the heat from my back door. And then I came out here and heard all the screaming.
It's understood an e-scooter charger exploded shortly before 11 o'clock last night. From there, the fire quickly spread, burning for only a handful of harrowing minutes.
The injuries were consistent with major burn injury from the fire. Both patients were placed into induced comas due to the level of their injury.
Tamika is in a critical condition at the RBWH, where she underwent an emergency C-section to save her baby boy. Her mother Christine posting on Facebook, "My poor daughter and her partner, my prayers are with you always. Mum is coming." Investigators spent the day going over the wreckage, but it still remains highly likely that it's an e-scooter charger that caused the blaze and prompted this plea from a grieving father.
Beware of these scooters. They're dangerous. I've lost my boy, and I may lose my daughter-in-law.
A young family with so much ahead of them. Thankfully, in some good news, I can report that emergency C-section was successful and that Tamika has given birth to a baby boy. However, she remains in a critical but stable condition. I understand her family is travelling up from northern New South Wales now to be by her side. As for Blake, the Logan House Fire Support Network is now accepting donations to hopefully fund the costs of his funeral and hopefully provide some support to the family in such a tough time.
Yes, indeed. All right, thank you, Ned. The bodies of an elderly couple have been found in a house in Ipswich. Laura Dimmock, police made the discovery last night.
Yes, Sharon, they were conducting a welfare check on the Brassel property when they made the sad discovery. 7 News understands that authorities had difficulty getting into the house because of a build-up of possessions, particularly around the doors. The couple, aged in their 70s, had lived here for many decades. They were regularly seen with their grandkids, but neighbours say recently the woman had been battling cancer. Police are still investigating how the couple died, but at this stage they say it's not looking suspicious.
Thank you, Laura. Laura Dimmock there. The new Omicron variant is surging through our community. 9 deaths and almost 9,000 new COVID cases recorded overnight. More than 3,000 of those are children, 19 in hospital, as schools rush to reintroduce measures to stem the spread of the virus.
COVID is back and sweeping through our schools. Brisbane Grammar, one of the worst hit.
We have 3% of our student population, which is 60 students, are positive at the moment.
And more schools are bracing for an influx of cases after the weekend's super spreader GPS rowing carnival. While boys and girls grammar schools have reintroduced masks today, more are expected to follow suit.
I'm supportive of the decision that we have made, and I think it's worth considering in those other schools.
In the last 7 days, almost 16,000 children have tested positive. The Omicron BA2 subvariant, now the dominant strain.
Cases have increased by 15% in Queensland over the past week.
Overnight, Queensland recorded 9 more deaths, 4 in aged care, and almost 9,000 new cases. More than 3,000 of those are children.
Almost 40% of eligible people who are due for their boosters have not got boosted yet.
And just 15% of young children are double vaxxed.
Why take the risk that your child could be that one that ends up needing hospitalisation?
Despite the outbreak and the reintroduction of masks, there are no plans to stop inter-school sport. Even school camps this week are going ahead.
We've set up a whole series of tents for boys to stay in so that their isolation is much stronger.
While BA2 spreads faster, it's not as severe and masks will not be mandated.
At this stage, we're not seeing significant numbers in increase in hospitalisation.
Learning to live with COVID and each new strain. Samantha Heathwood, 7 News.
An 18-year-old has survived an 8-metre fall down a drain in Strathpine. The young man was learning landscaping skills when he unknowingly stepped into the uncovered hole, sustaining serious injuries.
Injured underground and alone for an hour. An 18-year-old man, semi-conscious, strapped into a stretcher and pulled 8 metres to safety after falling down a concrete hole.
He'd fallen all the way down to the bottom of that drain. They were concerned about broken bones and bleeding, blood loss.
A paramedic went down to stabilise the teen, suffering significant leg and pelvic injuries. He's now in a stable condition at the Royal Brisbane and Women's Hospital.
Any falls over 3 metres are considered a significant fall by us. So with the injuries he sustained, it's quite fortunate he hasn't sustained stronger injuries.
I'd be going and buying a Gold Lotto ticket.
The teen was training to become a landscaper with Sandbag Community Services, a local organisation helping the unemployed learn new skills. His colleagues rushed to help.
There was a bunch of guys out the front waving everybody down.
They'd been working in the same area and said the gap in the ground was concealed by grass. During the floods, this road in front of the training ground went completely under. Neighbouring businesses say the force of the water then saw their stormwater grates come off. Workplace Health and Safety is investigating whether this is a freak accident or another casualty of the floods. Georgie Chumley, 7 News.
The extraordinary composure shown by Hannah Clark moments before her death have been detailed by the rescue crews who tried to save her. The mum of 3 knew her children hadn't survived and made sure rescue crews knew what her estranged husband, Rowan Baxter, had done.
A young mother who suffered a horrific attack at the hands of her estranged husband. What Hannah Clark did next was nothing short of amazing, according to experienced emergency responders who tried to save her.
Hannah was incredibly courageous at the scene given the level of her injuries.
She suffered burns to 97% of her body. Dr. Stephen Rashford telling an inquest he knew she wouldn't survive, but reassured Hannah and comforted her anyway.
That's all you can do in those circumstances, that the humanity that you can provide people in what is a very inhumane set of circumstances. I don't think it's time for frankness.
Before she was sedated, she bravely described what had happened and gave estranged husband Rowan Baxter's details to Senior Constable Angus Scaines. He described Hannah as amazing, the coroner praising the officer for his professionalism, trying to ensure there would be evidence to hold Baxter accountable. He died at the scene, despite the efforts of paramedics. There are 39 indicators in high-risk domestic violence cases. The inquest is expected to hear next week. There were 29 in Hannah's case, many in plain sight. Hannah's death helped spur calls for coercive control laws. The head of the Domestic and Family Violence Command, Ben Martain, telling the court in February all police were directed to complete new mandatory coercive control training. As of last week, 4,500 officers out of 12,000 had completed the online program, but face-to-face training won't happen until there is certainty around proposed legislation. Rosanna Kingson, 7 News.
And if you are in a domestic violence situation, DV Connect can help on 1800 811 811. There's also help for men who are at risk of becoming perpetrators. That number is 1800 600 636. It's China's worst air disaster in 3 decades. 132 passengers and crew feared dead when a China Eastern Airlines flight plummeted to the ground in remote countryside. Investigators are now trying to work out what led to the terrifying final moments of everyone on board.
Plunging to the ground at an ungodly speed, the heart-stopping final moments of a China Eastern Airlines plane in a near vertical nosedive, bursting into flames on impact. The domestic flight left Kunming bound for Guangzhou. It was cruising at just over 29,000 feet when it rapidly lost altitude. It stabilised at 7,400 feet, then hurtled to the ground. Rescue teams sent in by the dozens found pieces of the plane in the rugged mountains, but no survivors.
Whatever it was a catastrophic event, an airplane descending that quickly out of the sky. Something badly happened to cause the pilots to lose control of that airplane.
Until investigators find the black box, the cause of the crash remains a mystery. The Boeing 737-800 is considered a workhorse of the skies. It's the predecessor of the 737 MAX, which was grounded after fatal crashes in Indonesia in 2018 and Ethiopia in 2019. Pilots are baffled and say these planes simply do not fall out of the sky.
It was designed almost to be like the Model T of airplanes so that anybody could fly it.
It's the backbone of Australia's domestic airline fleet and has been for almost 40 years now.
China Eastern's fleet is now grounded, the airline and nation reeling from its worst aviation disaster in more than a decade. Ashley Mullaney, 7 News.
A man and woman have died in an apparent suicide pact in Caloundra. The bodies of the 48-year-old woman and 52-year-old man were found in a house last night with gunshot wounds.
Both deceased have connected via social media at a particular time and shared a common intention to end their lives.
Police responded after the woman called police with their intentions. And if you or someone you know needs to reach out, Lifeline is there. The number is 13 11 14. Russia is obliterating Ukrainian towns from the air. Now troops have been seen opening fire on peaceful protesters on the ground. The West believes Putin's brutal advance is slowing, but it's feared an approaching stalemate will push him to new barbaric acts.
Russian reconnaissance in the sky. Pictures it claims show Ukraine's military reloading missiles at a shopping centre turned weapons depot. Allegations it used to strike with precision. And the impact is horrifying. An apocalyptic landscape where a bustling mall used to be. At least 8 people dead in the most powerful explosion to hit the capital, Kyiv, so far. I don't feel safe anywhere in Ukraine, this woman says. Here's a new example of why. South in the occupied city of Kherson, a peaceful resistance is disrupted by their Russian invaders. Gunfire to scatter the crowds. Flash grenades. And chasing people through the streets, what appear to be armed Russian soldiers. Vladimir Putin's troops running like terrorists. Yet Russia still denies it's targeting civilians. Ukraine's president calls those Russian soldiers slaves, shooting at free people. This is what their towns look like in Kherson. The few residents left behind finally accept, some through tears, that they can't stay any longer. There's simply nothing left.
Убивали всех людей. Это сволочи, это гады, блядь, паразиты. От німці наші наступали, бачив я, бо я той так коло коров був. Так вони ж над людьми не здівалися.
Russian troops don't appear to be gaining significant ground, but are wiping everything they can off the map.
What's happening in Mariupol is a massive war crime, destroying everything, bombarding and killing everybody.
Ukraine's military continues to boast about its fight back, but NATO fears a dangerous stalemate is fast approaching.
He's already used chemical weapons in the past, and we should be careful what's about to come.
British defence analysts believe the Russian ground invasion has reached a critical point where only one major offensive can be maintained at a time. The focus right now, the besieged city of Mariupol. If it falls,
Moscow can send resources elsewhere.
Potentially Kharkiv and the capital Kyiv, where Russian troops appear to be digging in, leaving civilians picking through the remnants of their lives. In Lviv, Ukraine, Hugh Whitfeld, 7 News.
Well, let's bring in Jeff Parry now. And Jeff, there's talk of a coup to overthrow Vladimir Putin.
Sharon, most Russians get a very heavily censored version of the war in Ukraine, but there are people who actually know what's going on. The Russian military command, which has been fought to a standstill, and the oligarchs, billionaires who lead lifestyles that you and I can only dream of. Sanctions have taken away their boats, their aircraft, their bank accounts, and it's thought that the loss of that lavish lifestyle might be fertile ground for them to launch a coup against President Putin. It would be dangerous and it would be risky, but they might be prepared to do it if they thought that they could extract Russia from this war. In the capital, Kyiv, light years away from the Russian rich, they have less than 24 hours to go in their 35-hour curfew brought in after that missile attack that obliterated a shopping centre near the centre of Kyiv. Thursday marks the 4th week since the Russians invaded Ukraine. President Zelensky has made offers before, and he's made them again to sit down with President Putin and hold meaningful negotiations. He's yet to hear from President Putin about his latest offer. Sharon?
All right, Jeff. Thank you for the update there. Jeff Parry in Lviv. Protesters have rallied in Brisbane as a United Nations delegation arrives to investigate the Great Barrier Reef. There's growing anger amid the latest coral bleaching event. It comes as the head of the UN calls out Australia for failing to do more.
Fighting to save a natural wonder as UN scientific assessors weigh up a crucial question.
Has Australia done enough to keep the Great Barrier Reef alive?
The head of the UN taking a swipe at Australia overnight.
A growing number of G20 developed economies have announced meaningful emissions reductions by 2030, with a handful of holdouts such as Australia.
Amid rising anger over the latest coral bleaching event.
And what's most alarming about this particular event is it's happening during a La Niña year.
The UNESCO mission will help decide if the reef should be listed as in danger. One of their first stops, 1 William Street.
We put our case to them that we need much more action on climate change.
The UN delegation plans to visit the reef and meet with scientists, farmers and government organisations during a 10-day tour. But for such a high-profile visit, they've asked for as much privacy as possible during the mission.
We are experiencing climate change and we all know we've got to do everything we can.
Reefs can recover, but they need time.
Every year is now potentially a bleaching year.
They're being cooked, and there's nothing more heart-wrenching than to watch your favourite dive site die.
The clock is ticking. Marlena Wapp, 7 News.
Now on to the weather, and Tony, more blue skies across the southeast today.
Yeah, Sharon, some beautiful autumn weather continued today. A little bit cooler for the early risers, but maximums nudged just above the March average. Canungra coolest overnight on 13 degrees, while Greenbank and Bodessus were hottest today on 31, followed by Ipswich, Archerfield and Brisbane on 30 degrees. Coastal spots, as usual, a little bit cooler thanks to sea breezes. Now, a few showers and storms returning later this week. Sharon, I'll be back soon with the forecast.
See you then. Thank you, Tony. Intimate details revealed as Ben Robert-Smith's mistress takes the stand. The extraordinary price hike for some fruit and veggies. Royals of the Caribbean, William and Kate's ancient ruins adventure. And after sport, who stole cashew? The hunt for a mask-wearing thief who broke into the Dakaban RSPCA. See the full video.
Coming up on 7 News, meet the Mars, a Brisbane family of 3 finding money they never knew they had.
We're definitely talking thousands of dollars of savings.
Our expert budget buster saves them thousands without changing their lifestyle. How you can do it too. 7 News is Queensland's news.
Susan Walker's children have broken their silence after the 74-year-old was allegedly murdered in her Mollendina home. Issuing a statement today saying Sue lived life to the fullest, she really loved the beach and dancing, and she never stood still. Her accused killer remains behind bars after today facing a Gold Coast court. Jason King did not apply for bail and will return to court in May. Intimate details of Ben Roberts-Smith's romantic affairs have emerged on day 58 of his defamation trial. His former mistress wept as she described how she hoped to marry him and how the VC recipient allegedly mistreated her.
Awarded the highest military honour for devotion to duty, and today we heard of his devotion to a relationship outside of his marriage. His mistress, described here as person 17, met him at a charity event. He started talking to me and we just started flirting. I spoke of the problems I'd been having in my own marriage. He was unhappy too. I feel like I can't leave, he said. We then went back to his hotel room and we had sex several times. The court heard they became addicted to each other. After a few weeks, I said that I thought I was falling in love with him, and he said, "You don't want to fall in love with me. I'm not the greatest guy." We talked a lot about our future together, that we would get married. Their relationship, the court heard, was plagued by jealousy and mistrust. I got a pregnancy test. The result was positive. He told me, "I'm going to want some proof." Robert Smith is suing 9 newspapers after it implied he was a war criminal and violent towards his mistress. In 2018, person 17 said she attended an event at Parliament House where she was accused of being drunk and flirting with dignitaries. She left the event and fell down the stairs. Back at the hotel, he was pacing around, getting angry. He punched me. I ended up lying on the bed and I just lay still because I didn't know what he was going to do next, she sobbed. She will continue giving evidence tomorrow, where she will be questioned by his lawyers under cross-examination. Leonie Ryan, 7 News.
A woman has been bashed and her head stomped on during a brutal robbery at Helensvale. Police have released footage taken seconds before the 39-year-old was ambushed early on Wednesday. Her attacker dragged her into the middle of the road and grabbed her handbag. He only fled when a driver intervened. Anyone with information should contact police or Crime Stoppers. The Duke and Duchess of Cambridge have toured an ancient Mayan site in Belize. Dressed like tourists, they climbed the ruins of the city, which was only properly discovered in 1985. The royal couple is visiting the Caribbean as part of the Queen's Platinum Jubilee Year celebrations. Queenslanders are facing a shock at the supermarket checkout. Fruit and veggie prices are going up. Is there any relief in sight? The plan to get Brisbane city cats back on the water. The PM's plan to boost Queensland tourism, plus more changes on the way for international travel. And before weather, the budget busters saving families thousands, a special report. Brisbane's much-loved city cats are making a comeback, returning to service after the floods took them out of action. It will be a slow and staged return as life on and along the river gets back to normal.
At the whim of an angry river, they were smashed, set loose and sunk. But these cats are clawing their way back.
We are now, just 1 month after the event, able to announce the return of the first set of services.
Every one of the city's 25 terminals received damage, but Rapid Repairs have a few ready to reopen. From April 4, a single service, Bulimba to Tenerife, will recommence. A week later, West End to St Lucia. And in the weeks to come, the most damaged terminals will be back online.
We're still looking at 3 months for full service restoration.
So ferry passengers still have a couple of weeks to wait to get back on board, but recreational boaties and other river users are now free to once again hit the water. Maritime Safety Queensland has deemed one section of the Brisbane River from Bulimba Point out to Moreton Bay is now safe and has reopened to all traffic. As more businesses along the river reopen with it. Eagle Street Pier's Jade Buddha back to offering food and drink with a view.
As soon as we reopened, people were back and happy to spend money, and I think they fundamentally wanted to look after the businesses that were hurt.
But plenty are still hurting. There are riverfront restaurants that are write-offs, and the Stanford Plaza will be shut until May. Brisbane is recovering slowly. Speaking of slowly, things are about to get very slow for drivers on this Coronation Drive. Brisbane City Council confirmed this afternoon that for one section it will be down to just one lane outbound, so this lane can be utilised as a temporary bike path. The reason? this, the controversial Drift restaurant, which is still very much stuck, completely covering the Bicentennial Bikeway. Council says it's dangerous and is going to take up to 6 weeks for work to commence. In dueling press releases, the government said that is absolutely false. They are working on this complex engineering problem. The only reason they've stepped in is because council has not been able to do it. Special powers under the Queensland Reconstruction Authority will be utilised for only the second time to step in and once and for all remove this. It is more intergovernment level bickering, but it seems finally this eyesore will be a thing of the past.
All right, Joel, thank you. DNA experts have taken the stand in an inquest probing the unsolved murder of Annette Mason. The 15-year-old was discovered bludgeoned to death in her Toowoomba bed more than 32 years ago. Forensic scientists noted the technological advancements in DNA testing from the late 80s to now. The Prime Minister has travelled to Cairns, committing $60 million for the tourism industry. Scott Morrison says 1/4 of the cash will go to tropical North Queensland, while flagging changes to international border rules.
The Prime Minister playing tourist in the tropical north.
This is Norman.
Cairns, a key tourism market, battered by border closures.
It's been heartbreaking to see the streets and the cafes and the many operators not realising what they love to do.
Scott Morrison committing $60 million, $15 million specifically for Tourism Tropical North Queensland, $45 million for Tourism Australia.
This is going to help the Australian tourism industry burst out of the blocks.
Much of the money will be spent wooing travel agents and airlines.
Reinventing those relationships, teaching them about the destination, getting them down here.
Backpackers, another key group to be targeted.
We had, about 5,000 backpackers working in tourism and hospitality in this region pre-COVID, and we want them back.
The Prime Minister foreshadowed changes to international border rules, specifically the requirement for tourists to take a COVID test before arriving in Australia. It's already been scrapped in other countries like Canada.
In the very near future, the Health Minister will be making some further announcements.
For an industry clawing its way back. Ben Murphy, 7 News.
Cost of living increases just keep coming, with some vegetables hit with extraordinary price hikes, including 75% for broccoli. But consumers are being urged to shop smarter as supermarkets offer discounts on some key foods.
Almost $11 for a kilo of cucumbers, $13 for capsicum. The price of produce has skyrocketed, and that's if you can get what you want at all.
Most of the damage, the severe damage, has been on the eastern border, on the coastline.
Floods, on top of lingering COVID-related supply issues, mean the price of some vegetables has gone up by 75%. With broccoli now moving above $7 a kilo and prices set to stay high for at least 6 months.
More than ever, customers should be really well planned and take advantage of the offers.
From tomorrow, Coles will cut the prices of its pork shoulder roast boneless to $8 per kilo from $10, and of its pork leg roast boneless to $9 per kilo from $11.
Customers are transitioning to white meats and affordable cuts of meat as well.
Consumer confidence has plunged to its lowest level since September 2020, and many think things will only get worse. Inflation today is at 3.5%. Consumers believe it'll hit 6% within 2 years.
Economists attribute our gloom to wages failing to keep up with rising costs.
We know that petrol prices have a really big impact on people's expectations about inflation.
But some hope.
We do think that by the end of this year, real wage growth will be positive, and I think that'll be a big boost to consumer sentiment.
Gemma Acton, 7 News.
Their feud lasted decades. Next, Steve Wall breaks his silence on the death of Shane Warne. A 7 News exclusive. Childcare nightmare, the southeast suburbs where there's a major shortage. Andy Warhol's Marilyn for sale, the eye-watering asking price. And where's Cashew, the clown who stole a puppy from the Dakaban RSPCA? If you're always struggling to find childcare in your area, you're likely living in a childcare desert. A Victoria University study mapped Australia's black spots for accessibility. In southeast Queensland, childcare supply is more abundant in Brisbane's north. Spaces are scarce in suburbs such as Jimboomba, Forest Lake and Rocklea. In the past few hours, more than 30,000 people have secured tickets to Shane Warne's memorial service at the MCG next week. It's shaping up as a star-studded farewell for the cricketing legend and larrikin.
A farewell fit for a king.
And they can't catch him!
Shane Warne's public send-off expected to run for 2 hours on Wednesday next week at his spiritual home, the MCG.
We've been working very closely with the family to make sure that it is an appropriate celebration of his life.
The state memorial service to get underway at 7 p.m, live streamed across the country. Warne's star qualities on display, with Elton John, Ed Sheeran and Coldplay's Chris Martin, all to send video tributes to their mate. 50,000 fans are expected to fill the MCG. When the free tickets were made available this afternoon, the website struggled to keep up.
There's no COVID limit or anything like that. It'll be as many as we can get in there.
As part of the countdown to next Wednesday's public farewell, a special documentary, Warnie, will air on the 7 network tomorrow night, featuring a number of cricketing greats recounting the moments that made the man the legend. Warne's captain for much of his decorated career, opening up in a rare event following a checkered past between the two.
I guess a lot of Australians saw a bit of themselves in him, that larrikin streak, and they imagine that that's, if they play for Australia, that's how they want to play.
And Merv Hughes.
SK, beautiful man, no doubt about that. A fantastic friend. A lot of people didn't get to see the real you.
A final farewell to a legend forever with us. Liam Tapper, 7 News.
There have been some positive gains on the share market today. With her look at finance, here's Gemma Acton.
Thank you. A strong session for our local market, with the ASX 200 hitting a 2-month high of 7,341 points. Miners, including BHP and Rio Tinto, outperformed. That's as global commodity prices took another leg higher. The Aussie dollar has slipped back. It's now buying just under 74 US cents, while oil prices jumped sharply overnight. That was on news the European Union is getting closer to a ban on Russian crude imports. And by January, household spending was almost back to where it was in January 2020, before the pandemic. However, spending on some categories, including transport and restaurants, still has a lot of ground to make up.
It's one of the most recognisable images of the 20th century, Andy Warhol's pop art portrait of Marilyn Monroe. Now it could be yours for $270 million. It's expected to be the most expensive 20th century painting ever sold. As many Queensland families face the budget squeeze of the rising cost of living, there is help available. Meet the expert helping families save thousands. The top tips are just ahead on 7 News. But time now for sport, and naturally, good, bad, ugly. It's going to be the highlight.
Well, of course, Sharon. Gilly and I have been creating all afternoon. That's ahead. Plus, a want-away Broncos star will ply his trade at the Titans. And is there no stopping them? Australia's World Cup rampage continues.
Every day, we all need to know what's going on around us.
Rising far more rapidly than anyone expected.
Everything that impacts you.
We'll break into programs live, so you're the first to know.
We interrupt programming to bring you breaking news.
Continuing this rolling coverage, we're about to hear the latest live.
The Premier has issued a warning.
Don't be left in the dark.
When you're on 7, you'll always know the news.
7 News is Queensland's news.
Ex-Bronco Jermaine Asako has linked up with the Titans on a surprise short-term deal. The fullback turned down several clubs, including the Eels, to remain in Queensland. But now there's concerns the Broncos have left themselves short on stocks.
There was no sight of Jermaine Asako, but here's all the proof Titans fans need.
Looking forward to being a part of the squad, and sort of been a little bit of a dream to,
come down to the coast.
The fullback released by the Broncos, freeing up space to secure Selwyn Cobbo on a long-term deal. No shock, Kevy Walters has named Cobbo and stuck with the same 17 that won against the Bulldogs. Tessie New named at fullback despite being haunted by Matt Burton's kicking game. David Mead is 18th man and can't be ruled out as a late replacement. Corey Pakes has recovered from COVID, but for now Jake Turpin keeps his spot at hooker to play against their North Queensland rivals, who too are coming off a stirring victory.
You don't need any extra motivation going down to Suncorp against the Broncos, so yeah, we're looking forward to it, and we know we've got a big task at hand. They've obviously started the year pretty red hot.
Led by Payne Haas.
I think Payne's probably a bit similar to Jace. You don't really want to poke the bear.
The Cowboys will be hoping Payne pokes Taumalolo, who was back to his best in round 2. For this Sunday afternoon special, Todd Payton's only made one forced change, Ruben Cotter to the bench, replacing Mitch Dunn, who suffered a ruptured ACL. On the coast, the coach full of praise for his new 6, AJ Brimson.
I think he's going to be fantastic for our side at 5'8", and his combinations will get better and better with Toby and Jaden Campbell.
The club has denied any injury concerns for the young fullback. Jermaine Isako on standby and named on the extended bench, but once again both Fermor and Dave Fafita start on the edges, which keeps former captain Kevin Proctor on the bench. Katie Brown, 7 News.
A Queensland triple treat. How good, Webby?
Absolutely outstanding. The Cowboys, Titans and Brisbane won, despite you tipping them.
Adam Reynolds, he brings plenty leadership, goal kicking and a circus act.
Well, for mine, Herbie Farnworth with his brace of tries and Albert Kelly were outstanding.
And Corey H with his 100th try. That's a club neither of us are a part of.
Well, I actually scored 18.
In 12 seasons.
Oh, fair dinkum. We're going soft, giving the backs all the raps.
Enough. Let's toughen up. Talangi's hit on Frawley so hard it knocked him out of his shoe.
Well, that's better. Now, what about the bad?
Bellyache, game 500. Apparently, you can wear what you like.
Well, wardrobe aside, it was good to see nothing's changed in 2 decades.
And Latrell's 2-point field goal and a carry-on nearly wrecked the Bellamy party.
Well, speaking of coaches, Michael Maguire's already under pressure. His Tigers were awful.
Dare I say, ugly, Webby. I reckon the bunker can slip into that category at the moment as well.
Absolutely agree. Plenty of contentious decisions, but Jaden Sewer should never have been binned for this.
Matt Lodge and his battle with overheating is a contender this week.
Well, that's how we see it.
Not yet. Look what I found in the archives. Remind you of anyone. See you tomorrow with the tips.
Words fail me. Well, anyway, 2 Queensland cult heroes are fighting to play this weekend after being cited by match reviewers. Lions winger Mitch Robinson's fronting the AFL tribunal, challenging a 1-match ban for forceful front-on contact to Port's Xavier Dersma. Tomorrow night, a furious Reds will argue Taniela Tupu's 2-week ban for dangerous play. Refs on field and in the box checked his clean-out of Brumbies flanker Jerome Brown. They deemed play on.
Shoulder on shoulder was the call.
Hitting shoulder first, not direct contact with the head.
Sensar's review committee ruled it was above the shoulder line. Queensland will use evidence that no HIA was recorded. He's defied England, age, now illness. Queensland's Usman Khawaja saved Australia's start to the 3rd and deciding test against Pakistan. From 2 for 8, the tourists have just passed 350 on day 2 after Khawaja's 91 left him averaging a staggering 130 in the country of his birth.
It could be the 35-year-old's toughest knock yet. In high heat, humidity and pollution, the ball started reversing after 12 overs.
Oh, he's clubbed that beautifully.
But that wasn't Usman Khawaja's biggest problem.
I got some medication off doc in between the breaks. I wasn't feeling well at all. I was really struggling to be out there, and I'm just telling myself, just keep going.
He did for almost 5 hours.
Oh, that was pushed through a bit quicker. That is good batting.
It took something special to remove him.
That is a magnificent catch. That is outstanding stuff.
Today, Alex Carey picked up the baton, posting back-to-back half-centuries. At the one-day World Cup in Wellington, they say catches win matches, and there were plenty in Australia's top-of-the-table clash with South Africa. The Proteas outstanding.
What a sensational catch.
Mignon Dupria has pulled off a screamer.
But it's the ones they grasped that prove costly. Meg Lanning cracking 135, the captain carrying her bat, chasing down 272 with almost 5 overs left. Back home, some of Queensland cricket's biggest names helped launch the Century, a 100-ball frenzy based on the UK format for Brisbane Premier League franchises in August.
We've always tried to stay out of the way of traditional cricket. We want to add on to traditional cricket, not conflict with it.
Team owner Chris Lynn will be part of it, but off contract, will the former Heat captain be part of Brisbane's next big bash?
Look, you cross that bridge if you come to it. For me, there's still plenty of runs in the tank, and I'm pretty hungry and motivated to do so.
Ben Davis, 7 News.
And that's your sports chat.
Thank you, Webby. Tonight, police are hunting a clown caught on camera stealing a 4-month-old puppy. The brazen act is heartbreaking for the puppy's new owners, who were due to pick up their new family member that day.
A creepy masked clown snatching a puppy in the ultimate dog act.
It was very hard for us to actually see that.
It's around 2 a.m. on Saturday. A person dressed in a clown mask and red wig casually strolls up to the Dakabin RSPCA shelter. They swipe a cat bed and perch it on their head before taking a grinder to an enclosure and yanking the gate open. Inside is 4-month-old Cashew, a Staffordshire Bull Terrier mix. The thief, awkwardly clutching at the pup, makes an escape, racing through the corridors of the shelter.
Seeing the way that the animal was handled and taken out of the kennel, the puppy was very, very obviously distressed.
Devastatingly, Cashew was only hours away from moving in with her new family. The adoption was processed and she was supposed to be picked up later that day.
Families do get very attached to these animals, even if they've only met them one time. She was available for adoption for 1 day, and we did have numerous people come through the shelter.
Police have collected forensic evidence and are investigating. Cashew was recently desexed and has a white patch on her chest. Anyone who knows where the puppy is should contact police. Sally Guite, 7 News.
Meet the Queensland family finding the money they never knew they had. The expert budget advice helping the Mars save thousands. Details ahead.
And at the moment it's 24 degrees on the Sunshine Coast, an unsettled finish to the week. I'll have the forecast coming up next.
Families fighting the rising cost of living are finding savvy ways to save hundreds on household bills without changing their lifestyle. Our expert budget buster has gone through one family's finances to find those hidden savings. Here are the top tips.
Single mum Melissa Ma knows the value of stretching each dollar.
Every little fish is sweet when it comes to savings.
Household bills are on the rise, but our expert budget buster, Helen Baker, has helped Melissa cut costs, changing electricity providers.
$50 a month or something like that, and so you equate that over 12 months, that's a significant saving.
Savings too in grouping insurance.
My home and contents and my car are all bundled together.
And reviewing your home loan every year.
Recently I locked my mortgage in at 1.99.
Because when it comes to bills, loyalty doesn't pay.
We're definitely talking thousands of dollars of savings by reviewing your fixed costs.
If you can make some savings and you got more than you bargained for, then you can go on holidays and enjoy yourself with some of this money.
According to Compare the Market, a family of 4 could save $25 per month on electricity by switching to the best deal. Internet costs an average of $80, but the cheapest is $55. The average phone bill is $45, but prepaid plans are as low as $15. The average variable mortgage rate is 2.94% for an owner-occupier loan. Switching could save you $115 per month.
Appropriately budget, find yourself the best deal, compare, shop around, you will save.
Financial advice you can take to the bank. Kendall Gilding, 7 News.
Weather now, and Tony, how much longer will this sunshine last?
Well, Sharon, blue skies for at least another day, but patchy showers and storms are on the horizon. I'll have more on that in a moment. Today, those clear blue skies continued across the southeast. The hottest spots nudged into the 30s inland, coastal areas staying around 27 or 28 degrees. To the satellite, plenty of patchy low-level cloud across the state, but not too much rain with it here. Just the odd storm over the northern tip of Cape York Peninsula. Elsewhere, a trough is bringing showers and storms to parts of South Australia, Victoria and Tasmania. And behind me here, Cyclone Charlotte has just been upgraded to to a severe Category 4 system out in the Indian Ocean. Now, Charlotte should weaken over the next couple of days, but Western Australian residents will want to keep an eye on her towards the weekend. Back to the east, that trough continues north, triggering more showers and storms along the New South Wales coast. Then that instability should reach southern Queensland on Thursday, but in the meantime, staying mostly sunny and pretty hot for southern Queensland districts tomorrow. Around the capital, showers on the cards for Melbourne, Canberra and Sydney tomorrow, a cool top of 19 degrees in the Victorian capital. Back to northern Queensland, a possible storm for Weipa, then plenty of sunshine on the east coast, tops of 31 degrees for Cairns and Townsville. Heading south, some early fog around the Wide Bay, then a mostly sunny day. Gympie and Maryborough tracking for 32 degrees, make that 29 around Hervey Bay. In the southeast, we also need to watch for some inland fog early, then blue skies through the day. Staying hotter than average, Ipswich up around 34 degrees. Across the suburbs, Kenmore, Oxley, Chermside, not too far behind on 32. Make that 29s along the Bayside. Boaties, we're looking at light north-northwest winds to start on Moreton Bay, then turning north-northeast and freshening to 20 knots at times in the afternoon and evening. So in Brisbane, early fog in the west, then sunny and hot, 18 up to 31 degrees. And looking ahead, a possible inland shower or storm on Thursday, but it's only a slim chance that could reach Brisbane. Similar conditions on Friday. In Ipswich, where you are more likely to see that isolated afternoon storm on Thursday and Friday. Gold Coasters, the kids might be able to slosh around in some puddles again over the weekend. A few showers around, they'll be most likely in the afternoons. And on the Sunshine Coast, likely staying dry on Thursday and Friday. Then those showers starting to set in from Saturday onwards. So it's not looking too nasty at this stage, but Sharon, at least some wet weather is set to return.
All right, Tony, thank you. Now, before we go, here's a look at special reports we have for you tomorrow night.
Tomorrow on 7 News, stressed at school and claiming millions in compo, we expose the shocking assault on Queensland teachers. Plus, our cost of living series, how to get instant discounts on almost everything.
There are a lot of savings out there.
Groceries, petrol, clothes and much more. 7 News is Queensland's news.
And that's all from us this Tuesday. From all the team, good night.